Hey, this is Brendan from Comic Con. Today, we're going to be talking with Jim and James, James Asmus and Jim Festante. They're coming out with a sequel to Survival Street. Survival Street, The Radical Left, is being published by Dark Horse Comics. The first issue comes out September 25th. If you thought the last one was twisted, they tell me they're hyping it up for the second one. So let's go ahead.
I must ask you now.
I just got the most bizarre audio. That was the Ultimate Warrior yelling at some teenagers in my ear. Anyway, we got Jim Festante and James Asmus. Jim and James, how you doing today?
Doing
Great.
well. Thanks, Brendan.
Yeah, I wish I had Ultimate Warrior yelling in my ear too.
We were just talking about the self-destruction, the Ultimate Warrior, and it's really funny because there's it's the WWE, so they're obviously putting their spin on it. But Jim Hellwig as a human being was a pretty garbage human, and there's a video that he made. It was like a scared straight thing that he was doing with some kids, and he's just swearing at these kids and talking about sex and drugs like very graphically to these 14 and 15-year-olds, and that's what just interrupted my monologue because I hit the wrong button on my earbuds. So forgive me.
Or you hit the right button. You hit the right button by mistake.
You're not like spiritually in the wrong zone for this book. You know
maybe that was the right thing to interrupt my opening monologue. All right,
Yeah,
it works.
sure.
It works. All right, so let's talk. Let's open actually with the quote: "Comic book couples counseling." Lisa and Brad Gullickson. I love these folks. If you haven't listened to their podcast, you should give it a listen. It's worth the price of admission just for the opening. Their theme song that comes on. I will listen to that theme song 4 or 5 times in a row. I love it. But they say Survival Street has a mean bite, but it maintains a massive heart. The combination creates a surprising, heartfelt satire demanding attention. And I can't think of anything that really describes what you guys do better than that one quote.
We're so grateful that I think they were one of the first people who really championed the original miniseries for Survival Street, and they totally got what we were doing from the beginning. A lot of people just sort of see the puppets in an apocalyptic-ish setting, and they think we're doing some kind of like lowest common denominator, easy shock jokes of like puppets say and do bad things. That's not what this is. When they talk about the heart, like the reason puppets are heroes is because the world our story is set in is like the corporate apocalypse, where the billionaires get everything they want and the rest of us are left dehumanized and sort of way worse for wear as a result. And so kids entertainment puppets were the heroes for that world because they absolutely care about compassion, empathy, sharing, everything that the billionaires are opposed to. And so it's not a cheap joke about a puppet as a gun. They really represent what we're trying to hold on to in terms of the best of humanity, the best of compassion, and everything we want to preserve in a world where people who just care about the bottom line are racing to the exact opposite corner.
Yeah, and I would also say that they kind of too are a little bit of a stand-in for, you know, populations that are particularly vulnerable in such a hyper-capitalistic society. You know, children, immigrants. So they kind of like also fill that role as well.
Yeah, people who are in any way our statistical minorities are you know, just they don't have a big enough piece of the population to be able to really swing their political power. I mean, that's the thing that they kind of become. We're able to use different individual characters or the puppets in general as allegorical for an experience of the disenfranchised, of the disempowered. Within the story, we do explain that the reason they're really living, breathing, gun-firing creatures is that they did evolve on their own island of Snuffleupagus. And
now, is that an island that nobody believed in?
Until Charles Darwin discovered it, and they ended up being raided for their resources and eventually expatriated, and several of them into the US. And so that's where they kind of stand in for a whole host of things, but they're also have their own sort of bizarre mythology that explains where these edutainers we've all known and loved have come from.
Wow, so there's a little bit of alienation in there too, like
for sure.
Nice. There was a quote actually going back a little bit to what you were talking about when you first. I didn't want to interrupt, but Jim gave a quote that said that you're using puppets to allow people to take a step back and see how messed up these issues really are. And I think that's kind of, having these standees in there because you see it so much that you kind of become, numb to seeing the same violence and the same things on TV or whatever. And now when you see it with a puppet in there, it makes you pay attention because it's so out of place that you're like, wait a second, this is pretty screwed up.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what's wonderful about satire, and it doesn't always have to be, satire we think like funny, but also like to me, I mean, one of my favorite television series was the Battlestar Galactica reboot in the early 2000s. And I mean, they were really talking about all of the things that were happening with like September 11th and government overreach and, all of these things. But again, when you take that step out of it and you put it on a spaceship and they're fighting against sentient robots, it's kind of easier to have those conversations about who are the terrorists, what kind of, they're torturing them for information. It's all of these questions that we had as a society that are kind of difficult to address head on, but when you kind of filter it through this other lens, again, it's easier to kind of, it just makes it more palatable to digest and discuss and try and hopefully figure out or work towards some solutions.
And then I'm sure you end up with an element too of like people getting into it or whatever, and then realizing that the joke is on them down the line. Like you get with the boys and stuff. They're like, wait a second, they're making fun of us.
Yeah, we definitely we tried to not lead people down the wrong path for too long. Like in the first volume, the second issue, they go up against the WRA, the Weapons Retailers of America. And so we definitely had a lot of people who are very on board with the concept in the first issue. And then the second one, they're like, wait a second, this might not be the politics I thought it was. And I was like, I don't know how you think the children's entertainment puppets would have been extremely pro some other views. It seems odd to be surprised by that turn. So we tried to let people know early on.
Well, and it's funny too when you see them claim Sesame Street or claim, Snoopy or claim, Charles Schultz or claim Mr. Rogers or whatever, and then you sit there and you look at the things that are actually being told by these stories, and you're like, this is so against what you believe in. I don't know how you can raise this person up as an icon because they would hate you.
Absolutely. There's no shortage of that. I mean, everything, it's as simple as the Matrix, and the whole red pill-ism being taken when by the people who made the movie, it's about discovering trans identity, and it's sort of, I think that solidly puts it in a different camp.
But I like that you're not.
It's Paul. Oh, I was just going to say, it's Paul Ryan saying, my favorite band is Rage Against the Machine. And you're like, they're singing about you.
There's a really funny video too, where it's at like a MAGA rally or something like that. And they're like these old white people dancing to I Won't Do What You Tell Me. And it's just like, just rewind and listen for a minute.
Yeah.
And I think
that's the only lyric in the song they were tracking, not the other context.
They could do a 46-hour loop of just that one lyric over and over again and be like,
yeah, because the rest of it, they're like, you know what? Some of those that run forces do burn crosses. Like, yeah, I agree with
where's
that.
The lie? Where's the lie? It's yeah. Okay, so in the first series, let's actually let's get back on track here a little bit. The description of the book says the award-winning team of Survivor Street returns to tackle absurdities and existential terrors of modern America with puppets. After America is sold off to private companies, this ABC team of ex-entertainers rescues kids from cruel company towns, but Portland can't hold everyone they rescue, and the cracks are about to break. Prepare for a radical departure in the series. Library Journal called a blisteringly we'll try that again. Blisteringly satirical mashup of Sesame Street and RoboCop. I think that's fair. And in the first series, you guys tackled gun control, immigration, that California is always on fire. We're on fire now, just so you know. Environmentalism. And in the second series, I've seen a couple of the subjects here, but when do you guys want to go into some of the things you'll be covering with this one?
I mean, in terms of the existential anxieties we're feeling, which is so much what this book is designed for us to sort of process and doom prophesize about. If we're already here, where is it going? Talking about corporate use of AI to replace as many of us as possible, the dumbing down and souling out of children's entertainment, corporate ownership of IP and our individual rights and our individual likeness or identity, things like that, and where they want to take that with your terms of service agreements or anything else like that. So we've got all those, a host more, kind of the history of American colonialism that we don't necessarily want to acknowledge, all the different islands and territories and things that we claim ownership of without giving them the same rights that we give other citizens. But we are sort of adjusting the lens outward this time. And the way the series works is every issue is a different adventure, a different mission for the team, but consequences kind of build across the issues to have a sort of proper climax and emotional payoffs and arcs. So this time that sort of through line actually starts to analyze. The reason it's called the Radical Left is we start to dig into frictions, disagreements, and problems within sort of what you might call the resistance to the powers that be, to the oligarchy, to the political power that reigns. And what are the ways that we lose our power or lose our fights because we can't agree with each other, we break with each other, we disagree about where to draw the line on things or what battles are even worth fighting, and kind of fall out among our own ranks. So there's some self-criticism and some self-soul searching to that too, that really, I think, differentiates some territory from the first volume.
Okay. Anything to add to that, Jim?
Yeah, it's just like that idea of just, purity tests and, well, just because we don't all agree on this one thing doesn't mean that the larger issue of like, let's control this, out of control, rampant capitalism or stave off fascism. Like those are kind of the big ticket items that we really need to deal with. And so like, let's set aside those minor things that we're never all going to agree on anyway, to just kind of deal with those bigger issues. So like James was saying, just like taking that look inward of just like, things aren't perfect, but how do we make sure that we're still working together to kind of not see those larger things really start to swallow and kind of pick apart society.
But at the same time, we also get into like, well, what do you do if there really is an ally or someone that you think crosses a line? Like, how do you balance your desire for this bigger goal against your inherent morality you're trying to live up to? And so that's and sort of before we started recording, I was sort of comparing volume 1 to sort of punk music and volume 2 to like post-punk. And I that's sort of where I get into it. I think there becomes a complexity of ideas we start playing with in this one, and a sort of nuance while still throwing around some sharp edges and having a real driving energy behind it.
I thought you were about to do a mosh pit reference because you were throwing around something. I was like, yes, stiff elbows.
Yeah.
And, the thing is that it could not be more topical than right here, right now. It's an election year. We've got some issues. We've got some issues that, and the thing is like, you've got to look at the broader picture and, try to figure out which one of the little cracks and things in, the disagreements that you have on smaller issues and things make it important enough to, make a stink over when there's these much, much bigger things out there. So I can see just from what you described right there that this is going to be a very, very hot topic when it comes out. Like, who are they talking about? What are they talking about? Like, how do I apply this to my life?
I gotta say, we decided this was what the second volume was 2 years ago. And so like we have such a long development tail on this series. We were developing, volume 1 came out in 2022. We developed it and wrote most of it in 2020. And it only kept becoming more true. And now we're like the 4 issues for this are done. It starts coming out in September. You could pre-order now. Please do. I'll beat the drum a couple times, but that makes the biggest difference in the world for original concept books. But I really just wish we were less accurate at predicting where things were going in the immediate future. Like the fact that
it's not a good feeling. It's
the fact that it keeps becoming more right. I was like, oh gosh, I really in the back of my head was like, I hope we're not right, that we will also kind of be our own problem this year.
I'm looking through the press release here, and I'm trying to find it. I know somebody said something about Idiocracy. I'm trying to find the quote. Which one of you was that?
Oh, I don't remember if we did. Someone else might have compared it to that. Or I mean, it's one of the things that has come up often as people feel like that's somewhere in the DNA soup for us.
That's also one of those properties, though, that is hilariously like claimed on both sides of the aisle. Everybody's like, yes, it's Idiocracy. 1984 was not supposed to be a playbook. And it's like, you realize, again, that this is actually describing you. Like, it's not something for you to use against you. Like, this is, anyway. That's okay.
Very true.
I was texting James today because our ability to predict the future is getting way out of hand. We also are working on a Rick and Morty book right now, and it's called Contested Convention, about the President Curtis finding himself getting in a bit of trouble, like having somebody be like, no, I'm going to be the nominee for the party for president,
even though he's
over
the
you.
incumbent.
So.
Yeah, even though Curtis is
we
already
stop.
the incumbent running for re-election, and when Jim says we're working on it, to be clear, we wrote this months ago, and it's just getting finalized in like the colors and lettering now. That comes out in August, and it was another one where I was like, yeah, you're right. Once again, we are.
We should. I mean, can we write a book about the lottery next, please?
Would you please?
Something?
Would you please?
Yeah,
I'm ready to move. It is hot as balls here. It's been 105 plus all week, and it's not going to stop. I want to go somewhere cold. I want to go somewhere where I never see the sun. So I need to win the lottery. If you could send me an advanced copy of that book, I would really appreciate it. Let's give some shout outs to your creative team here. So you guys are obviously writing the book. James Asmus, Jim Festante. Your artist, I tried looking up how to pronounce his first name, and I couldn't find it. My best guess is Abele. I know the last name is Hosianov. He's doing the art. Colors by Ellie Wright. Letters by Taylor Esposito, whose name I got wrong a bunch. And he finally cornered me at a bar in New York at New York Comic Con. He's like, Esposito. I'm like, not Esposito? He's like, no, it's not. I was like, all right, man. I'm sorry. But I try to do my best. All right, covers are going to be by Ben Dewey, Juan Doe, Marie Anger. Another name is Artyom Trakhanov. I think the last name is right. I'm not sure on the first name. And Colleen Coover. So talk to me about your team. Like, how is it going? Is Abele the same artist that was on the first one, I think, because they look very similar.
Yep.
Okay, so
absolutely.
What's the process? You guys are in different continents. You're speaking different languages. How's that going?
Well, like many Europeans, he is fluent in English, and so it's really just our corner of the world that never bothers to learn another language. But Abele had we had gotten in touch around 2020, and we're interested in working together. And Jim and I just sort of we knew this was the series we wanted to do next, and floated the idea by him, even though nothing in his portfolio included puppets. Whose would?
You're like violent little puppets. You do that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We just assumed.
Exactly. The original character designs he did are in the back of volume 1. And this was just like his first stab at designing some characters for us. And it was just pitch perfect.
First stab, he says.
Yeah. He found exactly the way to evoke kind of the types of characters that you might be familiar with from other things, but truly make them distinct and unique and put his own spin on things. So, right from the jump, he's just been perfect. He's been so in sync with us on the vision for this book, and just keeps elevating it with, he gets better and better at making these really artificial structured heads, right? Like they don't emote the way our faces do. He finds ways to just absolutely deliver reactions that are hilarious, that are heartbreaking, that communicate so much. And he just keeps adding sort of brilliant slapstick and detail and perfect tonality. So at this point, we write full scripts, we go wild, we pack it with detail, and then he just absolutely delivers everything and more. He's a true co-creator, and I can't imagine what this book would be without him, but it's as good as it is because of him. And that just continues down the line with the rest of our team. Ellie Wright absolutely has done a masterful job of balancing sort of the candy colored appeal of the characters and what you want out of the kind of like children's entertainment we're evoking within and sort of threaded through a world that is decaying and falling apart because capitalism doesn't spend any money on anything to make our lives better. It spends money on making their own lives better or making the product more trapped. Right. And so she absolutely adds to that world building and knows how to thread this so that there's still that kind of core of energy and appeal all the way through it that the characters should represent and that make the book still fun and weird, like this weird flavor mix between them.
Yeah. I was just about to say, my son's got a Snoopy doll that he's had since his... That was just the Ultimate Warrior swearing in my ear again. He's got the Snoopy doll he's had since he was a baby. And that's the thing is, like, if you lift up the ear, you can see where the fur was at one point all white and like nice. And now it's like dirtied up. So you can tell that at one point it was nice, but you know, you got to take those bright Technicolors from the TV screen and be like, okay, so what if this puppet was out, you know, marching around, getting blood on it, getting dirt on it, getting motor oil on it or whatever. So you can tell where it came from and where it's at. It's kind of sun faded and it's dirty and stuff like that. So the color actually that comes across in the artwork that Abele has done, and then the colors that Ellie does kind of bring it into reality. It takes this thing that's you know, pseudo reality on television and kind of brings it into the real world. So that works really well.
And there's another, like, it's cool. We've been introducing, you know, a lot of new characters into the second volume. And one of them is a band that they all used to hang out with. But, you know, it's like this cross of like, you know, Bowie and like, you know, it's very psychedelic looking. And so Ellie's colors, especially in volume 2, have just been very like, yeah, that psychedelic brightness, like especially around them and the bus that they have that they drive around in. It's all, yeah, she's again, I mean, the whole creative team, even, you know, Taylor, the way that he's able to just kind of really present the story in a way that's unique, but also so easy to track. Like they've all just gotten even better as this process has continued over the years that we've been doing it.
Oh, I mean, Taylor is absolutely masterful. And it's especially because Jim and I come from comedy. We spent years improvising and sort of really doing live performance comedy and stuff like that. So we're very verbal writers. There's a lot of text in the like it's a very full read, and Taylor just makes it so fluid and so natural. And he's very subtle but rich in the way he finds diversity in the lettering to add distinction, to add nuance, to add sort of extra texture and tonality without making it separate from the book or come apart into components or overwhelm the experience. And it's such a deft hand that I really, really appreciate, and I think is that just top tier professional lettering that he truly don't always know how to parse, but it's there.
He truly is one of the best in the business. And I've used him as a reference many, many times. I've only been doing this about 10 years now. And so I'm very new at a lot of the funny little things about making comics and stuff like that. And I sent him a message on Twitter, God, when I first started, I'm like, hey, can I ask you a question real quick? I said, is this right? Because this looks wrong to me. And he goes, oh, no, that's very wrong. And this is why. And he broke it down for me. It made so much sense. And over the years, I mean, it's probably only 4 or 5 times, but those 4 or 5 times that I've reached out to him and say, hey, tell me what this is exactly right here. And he'll tell me whether I'm right, whether I'm wrong, or why. And it's great. He's such a resource.
He teaches at the Kubert School. He teaches at the Kubert School. And so, I mean, he knows it all inside and out, but also knows how to communicate and how to just how to work with others in the full 360 of the industry.
Fast.
Oh my God.
And I don't understand too. Like, we'll give him Abele's pages, and it's just like he's like, all right, here's my first pass, and you're just like, yeah, thanks.
You're like, it's perfect, thank you.
Absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely.
He's just a consummate professional.
And in terms of that run of cover artists that you named, they're all people we're just huge fans of. And it's been one of the joys of doing creator-owned books is that Jim and I just kind of get to reach out and tag in people that we just think do the coolest work. And for us, on the first volume and on this one, every issue has an A cover and a B cover, and you can order either one. If you're pre-ordering, you can specify. But we always have an A cover by Abele, our series artist, and then a B cover by a guest. And so this one, Benjamin Dewey, who did a cover for number 1 that became also the cover for volume 1. Folks just loved this image so much, and it came to define the series really quickly for a lot of folks, that we wanted to, in appreciation for that, have him come back and do another cover for
I think
number 1 for this.
That cover that you just held up is the one that I think of when I think of the series. I'm like, oh yeah, that's the one. Yeah, it's very iconic of the series as a whole so far.
Yeah, and it was so succinct in giving people a sense of what, at least, you know, a core of what we're doing and what we're talking about, even if you can't capture the whole ball of wax in one thing. But and then adding to that, Marie Anger is someone we've recruited multiple times on different projects. She's just one of our absolute favorite artists in comics. She does some super rad, I mean, talk about stuff with like punk energy. She absolutely delivers that in spades. And then
also Juan is,
yeah,
you know, when James and I did our first series together for Image 12 years ago,
why put a date on it? Just when we did our first original, when we did our first creator-owned series together.
Yeah.
Which was End Times of Bram and Ben.
The first time I saw Wando was when he was working with Cullen Bunn on Dark Arc, and I was just blown away by that whole series. Like, it's so just twisted and just dark and dirty, and I'm looking forward to seeing that cover, because I hope that he brings a bunch of that to it.
It's awesome. It is that. It is definitely that. And then Artyom is a friend of Abele's, and he just did a really stunning image for us for one of the covers.
Yeah, Abele had recommended him, and he's someone I've just seen his comics art online for years, and I just think is so cool and so just absolutely has his own unique voice. But for all of these people, there are also people who we think could reinterpret the puppets in like the puppet designs in a way that was really cool and could capture their essence, but sort of be great to see them sort of iterated out into these other very distinct, very awesome styles. And then Colleen Coover, the multiple Eisner Award winning Colleen Coover, is a local friend here in Portland. And she did the cover that's going to be exclusive for number 1 for Rose City Comic Con here in September. And it's actually going to be available, I think, a week or 2 weeks before the book launches otherwise. So we'll have, those will be super special to grab for those who can. But so she just did the coolest, cutest, wonderful cover.
Nice. So Rose City Comic Con, that's September 6th through 8th, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And you guys are going to be there. You're going to be promoting the book. You're going to be paneling for it. Cool.
Yeah. We'll be doing a panel with Dark Horse. We'll be doing signings. We got a table set for ourselves, so we'll be there all weekend. We're going to have that exclusive variant cover for number 1 by Colleen. I think Colleen is planning, she's not tabling, but she's going to try and come in and do some signings at the Dark Horse booth for it as well. So coming in, hit it up if you're anywhere in the Pacific Northwest.
Right on. And you guys, you mentioned FOC briefly. What's the FOC for the book for number 1?
Great question. I believe it's August 20 something. I should know this offhand.
That's 4 weeks before release.
Yeah, and that's the usual jam, right? So
yeah, that's about right.
Yeah, so I think to that end, it's probably August either 19th or 26th. The trick is, the real point is just pre-order it now. You can pre-order it now. So why wait?
Don't step all over my next point. Hey. Who's hosting here? Huh? All right. So I was just about to say the important thing about pre-ordering is, FOC, you got to get in there. You got to order the books. They've got a bunch. They said they've got an A and B, and then they've got multiple variants of each one. You got to go in there, tell them which book you want, so that your local shop knows what to order, so that they order more, so that more people are exposed to the book, so that the book keeps getting made, so it keeps getting ordered, so it's available at your shop. You got to go in, you got to tell your local shop owner by name that you want this book, and you got to do it before, let's say, second week in August to make sure you get it.
Yeah.
And then your shop can get a really cool poster that the American Library Association yelled at us about.
We didn't know it was a copyright violation.
But look, if it's any concession, one of our books in volume 2 is in support of librarians.
Yes.
So
you got to throw an allegedly in there somewhere, man.
Well,
I mean, we're not trying to get sued here.
This is what I will say. We aren't selling the posters. They were things we were giving away, and we happened to be giving them away at the American Librarian Conference. And so we were in the heart of it, but they were, by all accounts, very, very nice about it.
Very cool.
Communicating that. And the librarians,
well, they're librarians. They have to be nice. That's their job.
They can't raise their voice.
That's their vibe. Yeah. They can just give us a stern look.
Support your local library is what we're saying.
No, 100%, 100%. My kids go to the library to play Dungeons and Dragons. The librarian had no idea what she was doing, and I sent her a bunch of materials. Anton, the storyteller, is one of our guys. He does all of our TTRPG, does a bunch of collectibles and toys and stuff. He set her up with, what books to buy and what to look at and stuff. She's been doing that with them. They wanted to play Switch. She got a Switch. She set it up. They wanted to play chess. She made a chess club. Like, they're not just for books. They're places for kids to go and to be accepted and grow and learn. And I can't say enough about library. I got a lot of librarian friends. So if you're watching, I don't know these guys. I just met them just now. So
again, read volume 2 where we fully support librarians. There's a chase and a mob is after them, and we save them and send them on their way. The
villains of issue 2 are a militant book band going after librarians.
Okay, so you just redeemed it. Okay, all right.
It is about the team trying to save some librarians. So
nice. All right, we've been given the high sign from producer Eric. My name is Brendan Allen. We're promoting Survival Street, The Radical Left, from Dark Horse Comics. Comes out September 25th. That means FOC is going to be in the middle of August. Go and pre-order. That's James Asmus and Jim Festante representing the whole team. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.